There will be a meeting of New Hampshire Fish and Game Commission on Tuesday, December 16th, 2025 at 1 p.m. at the New Hampshire Fish and Game Department at 11 Hazen Drive in Concord, New Hampshire. If you could please start by doing the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be advised that this meeting is being captured on video. The public is entitled to attend all commission meetings, and when recognized by the chairman, the public may speak on any item on the agenda. The chairman reserves the right to limit public comments to the extent necessary for orderly conduct of the meeting. First action item is the approval of the November 18th, 2025 commission minutes.
Move approved.
Have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm going to abstain because I'm not here. The next consent agenda is item together, 2A through 2E. The following items have been grouped together and noticed as consent agenda items to expedite action on routine matters which may not require public discussion. Commission members may remove certain items if further public input or discussion is deemed necessary. 2A, approval to accept the following donations totaling $675 made to the search and rescue account. Stephen Wheeler, $500, Christine Barker, $125, Maureen Greenberg, $50, for a total of $675. Approval to accept the donation of $25 from Brian Pierce, Concord, New Hampshire, in memory of his wife, Fran, for a deposit into the small gifts and donations account. 2C, approval to accept the donation of $50 in memory of Let's Go fishing instructor Paul Chartrain, Merrimack, New Hampshire, from Mark Brogan of Loudon, New Hampshire. Approval to accept 2D, approval to accept the donation of $250 in memory of William Bassler, Spofford, New Hampshire, and James Stoff, Spofford, New Hampshire, to be utilized by the Wildlife Education Program. 2E, approval to accept the donation of $100 from Barbara Cooper, Nashua, New Hampshire, in memory of Levi Fry, for the deposit into the small gifts and donation account. Can I get a motion for items 2.1 through 2E?
Move to approve.
Second?
Yep.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Item number 3, final approval of Fishery Regulation 301.031. I'm sorry, that's deer tags, FIS, thank you, for WM Unit L. And 301.06 beer agent fees.
Thank you very much, Dan Bergeron, Chief of the Wildlife Division. So this is the third time I think I've been before you with these. So it's the same rule package. There's been no changes from start to finish. So the Unit L is really just changing it from a lottery system to a first come, first serve basis for those permits. We've had more permits available than there's been demand in the lottery, so some of those permits are going unissued. So we're going to switch it to a first come, first serve, similar to the way M has been done for years. The second FIS was just bringing us up to compliance with the state statute change a year or so ago. They gave the ability for bear registration stations to charge a fee, similar as they do with deer. We had a public hearing for those. No one showed up, so there were no comments at the public hearing. We did have 4 comments come in through email. One person was in support of it, 2 people were opposed to it, and then there was 1 comment about muzzleloader tag, an additional tag with your muzzleloader license, so it was kind of not related to the rules. So very limited comment, and again with the L permits, currently we're not issuing those also. We have permits that are just kind of going unused. So this will allow us to issue all those permits and utilize them also. With that, we're looking for your final approval to go forward to jail car.
Before we start with any questions, we get a motion.
Motion to approve item number 3 on the agenda as stated.
Any discussion? Not seeing any discussion. I'm going to call the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion
Thank you.
Motion passes. We're going to take a quick sidebar that's not on the agenda today. It might be a little surprise to the Colonel, but I have a combination here from the Governor's office. And I'm going to read it. Whereas,
You look back, I'd like a nice picture of you and the colonel
Sure,
when
sure.
you're doing that.
I don't know if I'm pretty enough.
Thank you, sir, that's nice. You paid for that.
That's gonna cost you then.
That's why you wanted me up here.
He looks like a deer in the
I'm
headlights.
going to
when
read
he
this
said
out
that.
loud here. Whereas Colonel Jordan has served with distinction in wildlife law enforcement for more than 35 years, including a decade as Chief of Law Enforcement Division of New Hampshire Fish and Game, where he has led with integrity, vision, and steadfast commitment to conservation, and whereas his career has been marked by courage and dedication in the field, from life-saving rescues and high-impact investigations to leadership in critical incidences and manhunts, embodying the highest ideals of service. And whereas Colonel Jordan has advanced wildlife conservation and enforcement in New Hampshire through innovative programs such as the establishment of the K9 units, drone search teams, and forward-looking recruitment and training initiatives that have strengthened the division for generations to come. And whereas his compassion as a leader has guided the division through moments of hardship, with his advocacy has ensured enduring support for both fallen officers and future recruits alike. And whereas the presentation of the prestigious Guy Bradley Award by the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and its partners honors Colonel Jordan's extraordinary lifetime contributions to wildlife law enforcement, placing him among the most respected officers in the nation. Thank you for your service.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, next item, the financial statement. I think we all have copies. Does anybody have any questions for financial statement? Chief Labonte.
I am here.
Anybody have questions? Chris, you're always,
I don't.
if Chris doesn't have questions, I don't have questions. So we'll move on to the next item. Presentation on the status of New Hampton hatchery.
All right. Good afternoon, Commission. Thank you for having me. I am Alex Sitek, and I am the supervisor of hatcheries. I've been at the department now for about 6 months. And today we're going to be covering where we are with the 2025 fish production. Then most of our time today is going to be focused on the status update on the New Hampton hatchery modernization project. And then finally, we'll close with a focus on what is next.
Alex, if I may,
Yep.
check the mic.
Hello?
Yeah, you gotta tip it back, so you're just really tall.
Yeah, you're too
You're
tall.
just
Sorry.
tall.
Is that a little better?
Little bit.
Come a little more towards you, right there.
Testing.
Yep.
You might just
All right.
yell
Come
at us.
back. I'm
Not
at
a
the
problem.
right angle.
I'm definitely.
All right, so today's presentation is broken down into 3 main sections. First, we're going to take a quick look at the current status of hatchery fish production across the state. Second, the New Hampton Modernization Project, progress milestones, current conditions. And third, we're going to be looking ahead at what we're planning to restore the capacity, manage constraints, and improve outcomes for the larger fisheries program. With that framing, here is the 2025 production snapshot. Right now, we're still currently operating as 6 hatcheries. Yes, one of those is under construction, but we are still operating them. With those 6 hatcheries come the responsibility of 6 NIPDs, National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits through the EPA. Currently, we're sitting with about 2 million fish in the water, which is roughly about 130,000 pounds. And this year, we've just finished our egg take in the end of October, and we're sitting roughly just over 1.2 million eggs. So, looking at our historic fish production, this chart shows a clear drop from the spring 2025 stocking compared to the past 2 years. This should be expected as we have anticipated this drop while we are under construction for the new facility. That decrease is not limited to only one issue, but rather convergence of the modernization project impacts at New Hampton, but also the drought and water constraints and system reliability challenges. The key message here being that beyond construction of the new facility, we're focused on maintaining stocked fish programs and fishing opportunities as much as we can, in addition to the strict permit compliance, and that requires some production trade-offs. Even with those constraints, there were major wins this year, starting with the people doing the actual work. The reality of fish production is hands-on work, and sometimes our staff has to work in all these challenging conditions. I want to recognize the team from all the hatcheries that came together this year to maintain and take on higher biomass loads to reduce the impacts of normal fish production, fish stocking, and trying to exceed the limits on our discharges. Discharge permit obligations. One of those is the strictest level ever enforced by the EPA, and it's still allowing us to push forward to spawn fish, to keep up our production, and minimize the disruption during the first year of construction of our new facility. Statewide, we're still supporting a large program, currently growing more than 2 million fish in the water, weighing just over 130,000 pounds. This past year, we stocked 220,000 pounds, down from about 330, as you saw on that previous graph. This year's egg take was just over 1.2 million brook trout eggs, just over 50,000 brown trout eggs, and then many more rainbow trout eggs as well, which are scattered across our various hatcheries. Takeaway here is that the production engine is running full steam ahead, and now our challenge is restoring full output while continuing the modernization in a safe manner. New Hampton is the major driver behind the 2025 dip in production. So here's a look at what that, here's what that looks like on the ground level. These images illustrate the steps taken by the team in their temporary Connex container facility at the New Hampton hatchery to continue raising fish. Here we kept critical functions going where possible, but construction-driven constraints are limiting that amount of fish that we can produce currently. This brings me to the key constraints at the management level in our program. And you can see here some of the team during spawning day. The picture on the left is going to be our team, the superintendent, Scott Finney, and then the actual egg care on the far right. So all those eggs are just about ready to hatch these days. So first, the challenges on production. Hatchery modernization is absolutely necessary, but it does currently temporarily reduce our capacity. The more pressure is exerted on the rest of the hatcheries to overperform to try to keep the stocking numbers up. But we also have more than 60 infrastructure projects going on at the same time that we are actively managing and performing throughout the rest of the hatcheries to reduce risk, improve reliability, and improve rearing capacity. There's a large amount of time dedicated to managing contractors, scheduling work, and minimizing the impacts to fish production itself. Third, the 2025 drought conditions in New Hampshire were unprecedented and continue to be a risk factor for us. As we get into winter, the drought has kind of creeped back in. And we continue to be continues to be a risk and a factor of uncertainty moving forward into 2026. Fourth and finally, we are moving forward with IT upgrades throughout the department, which are not just nice to have, but they are improving our monitoring, response, operational stability, and will be key to the success moving forward. To put the infrastructure challenges into perspective, let's take a look at the profile of our hatcheries. So looking at the age profile, you can see that more than half, 3 of our 6 hatcheries are over 100 years old. But luckily for us, you can see New Hampton listed twice, as we are finally in the present day where we're actually talking modernization and construction. Modernizing hatchery is essential to sustain fish production, protect natural resources, support the outdoor economy, and build a resilient fish culture system that will last the next 100 years. We've got through the last 100, let's figure out a way to get through the next 100. So why does this matter? Aging infrastructure means increasing failures, emergency repairs, risk to fish, and we can see that through the aging infrastructure. We also experience a lot of socioeconomic pressures that for hatchery fish are underpinning angler opportunity and supporting local economic activity on the scale of more than $200 million to the state per year. An increasing level of regulatory pressures are becoming increasingly strict as the EPA has been revising NIMD's permits and regulations and limiting those discharges as we've seen. Also, environmental pressures continue to increase. Most notable to us is going to be the drought conditions, which continue to affect our production. So modernization programs protect both the resource of the public value and the value of the program itself. So, stepping into the modernization project, here's a quick little oversight map. Looking at the total site, so the whole site is spread across 160 acres, and the colored series represents the major functional systems that are necessary for this construction project. Contains 10 building structures which are slowly taking shape. We had our hatchery modernization meeting this morning with our key stakeholders, and we can tell you that we are on schedule, we are on budget, and everything is moving forward smoothly. So here are some of the milestones that we've completed thus far. Right now, if you were to take a ride up to New Hampton, you'd see that 90% of our foundations are complete. The rest of those should be finished this month. Yes, they're still working out in winter conditions. The below-grade pipe work is just over 50% complete now, as they have started to build out and dig and install the final stretches of pipes on the lower end of the facility. Masonry is about halfway done, expected to be completed probably by the end of January at this point. And now we've had the pre-engineered metal buildings arriving on site and being erected accordingly. Finally, the sludge and sand filters, which you can see here. The brown tank is our sludge. The square one on the bottom right is going to be your biofilters. It's green. Easily worse. Great. So on the lower right is going to be our sand filters, which have all been leak tested, and now backfilled, which allows us to have better site accessibility, getting more throughput with trucks and heavy equipment and so forth. So next, I'll show you a few current condition photos so you can visualize a little bit more clearly where we are today. On the left here is a shot taken of our new hatchery building. That is plastic sheeting over the masonry work that's currently being completed. This is from our Region 2 office, so all you have to do is pull right up into the parking lot up there, and you can see the project for yourself. Right now it looks like a giant plastic bubble because it is. That's what the masons need to get the proper reactions on their grout work. Winter may slow down some tasks, but we're progressing according to schedule. Thanks to the diligent cooperation between project management over the Department of Administrative Services, HDR engineering team, and the MWH construction team. The second photo here is a look at our pipe work underground, some of which that I was just discussing, which also shows where our degassing will be. That may not mean much now, but I promise in a few months here, that'll come to take shape and we can give you a little bit better description of that. And finally, the picture on the right, it may not seem like much, but having block buildings, that's going to be our feed storage on the right. And on the left, you can see one of our first concrete cast manholes. These manholes are about 7 feet in diameter, so they're pretty big, and we have lots of pipes running to and fro throughout that entire area. So what you can't see is the massive network of pipes underground. So looking at that giant plastic bubble from the opposite side, we have security cameras on site for site protection and monitoring. And this is what you see. We're going to have the hatchery in this specific location. This is the upper site. The camera is posted on our website. It shows a daily snapshot of the current construction progress. This is looking at the current state of the main hatchery building. To the right, you have the broodstock raceways. To the left is the hatchery, the fry systems, the egg hatch house, so on and so forth. Concrete work is pretty much complete, like I said. Should be done here by the end of December in upper hatchery, and the masonry continues. Masonry should be done by the end of January. And now we have one more angle to tie the upper and lower site together. Our lower site, while not published on the website for safety reasons, safety and security reasons, we have a wide shot on the lower site looking back towards the upper site to show the full working area and the pace of construction. So again, the big round tank will be our sludge. That will be the solid waste from the fish farm. That will be field applied once we have some networks and relationships with local farmers. The square concrete containers on the right are going to be biofilters. Those are about 16 to 20 feet deep. So what you can't see is they're very, very deep. So is that sludge tank as well. On the left side behind the brown building is going to be our recirc. So that is the magic of what makes this system work for us. That new building, right now they have 2 channels going in there. That will allow us to reuse 90% of our water and also filter out all that waste, so we are not sending that back to the environment. So what does this all mean? Our goal is to start New Hampton with 175,000 pounds of production. That's going to be our production goal, which will be a major level for statewide stock and stability. We're also looking at trying to introduce genetic variation thoughtfully to strengthen long-term resilience where it aligns with our management goals. We're actively engaged in efforts to review the economics, formulate a plan to optimize fish production and reduce risk. And finally, there's a continued emphasis on project management, schedule tracking, coordination, and tight scope control to deliver strong working hatcheries, facilities, and all of our state hatcheries. Here is a photo of some of our eggs that we took this year. So those are those stocked fish of 2027. So that's all for today's update. I'm happy to answer any questions. If you do have any, I provided the link here, which you can find directly on our website, and you can watch and monitor this progress yourself. If you'd like to visit the hatchery and see the progress in person, the public is not allowed currently on site, But you can see the site from our Regional 2 office, so I would encourage anybody interested to check it out.
Thank you, Alex. The Resources and Infrastructure Committee has been to the site a number of times. And as amazing as this construction project is, what also is equally amazing is the staff and what they've been able to do in some Connex containers and a generator and a plastic tank. And it's just amazing that you've been able to keep up the production that you're currently projecting by the resources that you have to use, and the ingenuity of the staff has really been great. So it's very impressive.
They do a very nice job.
Thank you, Alex. Question I got is, what percentage of the eggs eventually hatch into a stocking size fish?
That depends. There's a lot of conditions to consider. How the fish are. This year we only had about 300 to 500 fish to spawn, and so that really kind of limits our capacity on egg take. Sometimes survival can be in the 80 percentile range. Sometimes it's much lower. It really depends on the fitness of the fish. Do you know, Diane? Do you have any history?
So two things I would note, that one, these are only the brook trout and brown trout that are here. They're not the rainbows. So the rainbows come in, so your question, definitely species related. So our rainbows come in from out of state, and we've had major quality issues with those, so much less than the 80%. We've had some that, so those are the rainbows. As far as here at New Hampton, this is only the second year that we've done only brook trout from here. We used to have brook trout from Berlin as well, so Berlin had its own take, just as you saw in the video, and survival was different there than it was at New Hampton. And so under these conditions, under these less than ideal conditions, it probably is somewhere around that 80%, which is actually really good. But I will say that in the hatchery history, when the conditions are really where they should be, it's not shocking to be somewhere in the 90s.
Oh, that's
So
good.
we have really good production.
Thank you.
Yeah, and it can be low as 40% sometimes, so
Yeah.
80 is actually very good for given conditions.
Yeah, we've had issues with the rainbows that literally we get the lot and not a week later they all die. So we've had as much as 100% mortality, so
Excellent.
it's a big deal depending on where they're from.
Thank you.
Director Snyder.
Yes, I just wanted to remind staff, when you're speaking, please come up to the podium.
Oh, sorry,
Thank you.
sorry, Diane Timmons.
Thank you.
I've got a quick question. Some of us were on the committee to get this thing rolling. Did I only see one circle of pool there?
Yes, currently there's only one circle right now.
We're gonna have more, right?
Oh, yes,
Oh, okay.
many. Yeah, so right now they have to do, so the reason why the project looks and feels behind, one of the biggest questions and comments that we get is that we haven't spent enough of the project, there's not enough built yet, and we have 1 year left. At this point, this is the most critical phase of the construction, is handling the foundations, the pipe work, the underground work, because that sets the literal foundation for the rest of the building. The team is doing a great job. The construction team has been amazing at coordinating all the different contractors that are coming in, and basically they're jumping from building to building, contractors following one another, different disciplines. So pipe work, electrical, they're all following in due point to take care of everything all at once. It's actually pretty amazing.
Alex, in the lower building, are there 6 tanks indoors and 4 outdoors? I can't remember exactly what it
There's
was.
going to be 10 indoors, 4 outdoors, and those are going to be 40-foot diameter tanks. So there's 14 large tanks down in the bottom end. There's going to be about 12 mid-sized 20-foot diameter tanks in the intermediate. And the hatchery is going to be filled, I think there's 30 tanks in there. So.
There's a lot of tanks in there when you see the plans,
Oh,
but
good.
that would be in the later stages of the project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, so right now, they're just finishing up the concrete work, the underground pipe work is just about complete. We should be moving into building construction, so we just started getting steel, as you can see in the picture on the right here. Our IRP, the intermediate rearing pavilion, where those 20-foot tanks are going to be, we just got steel beams up, and the trusses just went up as well. So they should have tanks coming in probably in the next 2 months or so.
Thank you.
Commissioner Thomas.
Yes, thank you. I have two short questions, if I could, Mr. Chair. First of all, you mentioned briefly about our strict permit that we're coming into compliance with. With respect to our other facilities, do we anticipate another curveball or two coming from permits?
Yes, depending on how the EPA ends up unfolding. There's been a lot of recent rollbacks in the Air and Water, the Clean Air and Clean Water Act recently. So there is still a concern there, and as environmental stewards, we want to do the best that we can to leave the environment unaffected. So we're trying to take this modernization as a step forward to improve the water quality. That way we're not polluting anything.
So it's, in my simple mind, I guess it's important to make sure what the permits read now, when they become due, and if we anticipate a specific trend out of EPA going forward in the future. My second question, if I could, we talked about, or you talked about our sludge tanks, our circular sludge tanks, and taking the waste from them and distributing to, hopefully, local farmers or people that want fertilizer or whatever. Having said that, does the department need any special relationship with either DES or Department of Agriculture? Do we have a plan to know what we're going to do with the waste?
Yeah, I mean, one of the thoughts there is that we would start by working with the state universities. There's a lot, I know, coming from the UNH agricultural station myself, I know that they have a lot of want and need for active manures, and fish byproduct really does make a great manure for agriculture. So I would imagine that it could be a really great resource for a lot of farmers across the state.
My experience has been it's easy to get rid of,
Yes.
but it has to meet a certain standard by DES before they'll let you move it off-site.
Of course.
So it
Yep.
sounds like you got a plan.
Slow and steady.
If I could just add to your first question, Diane Timmons, Inland Fisheries Chief. The project was designed working with DES and EPA folks. So our standard, right now we do not have a total phosphorus limit there, but we worked through this design with a phosphorus limit expectation of 50. So there is the expectation that we're going to have a limit. We do not have that yet, but we moved forward with that in mind. So we were thinking about it.
Thank you.
Any other
Two questions. First question, congratulations on time, on budget. To do that, have you had to make any project changes that will result in production decreases?
No, not at this point. Right now, we have a pretty long wish list. We actually have the opposite problem. Right now, the way that we're set up with the contractors, we kind of have an active discussion weekly. At this point in winter, we're doing bi-weekly meetings, but the contractors and myself meet regularly to discuss any minor changes, details, verifications, and things like that. Really, that's essential to try to maintain this project on budget, on time, and we're getting through those pretty quickly. I think right now we have an outstanding list of 300 changes, so we have to work through that diligently, and we're meeting 2 to 3 times a week.
Second question, genetic, you mentioned genetic variability. That's in the brook trout broodstock?
Yeah, it can be in the, it can actually be in any of the species, but predominantly we want to focus on, trying to protect those natural and native fish. mostly being the native brook trout. In some internal discussions, we've talked about various genetics and how distinct the fish in New Hampshire may end up being from other strains. So it would be beneficial in our interest to look at those and evaluate those further and see what makes sense to further the program, make it even better.
Thank you.
Commissioner Poole.
Thank you, Alex, for your presentation, and in that regard, could we get a copy of that PowerPoint?
Of course.
Would that be possible? Appreciate that. And my actual question is, in discussions in the past, we talked about trying to either train up or hire people to run this, and that being maybe as much of a challenge as the facility itself. How's that going as far as having people because that was one of the challenges earlier, was how we make sure we get the people on board to.
Yeah, and I think that may be one of the reasons that I was selected for this position.
Everyone nod your head, yeah.
So that is one of the ongoing discussions that we have internally with the team on a weekly basis. We're already starting to design bio plans, biosecurity plans, different procedures. We're actually starting a commissioning walkthrough for the entire facility with the entire engineering and construction team next month, so early in 2026. And yeah, so bring in that operational expertise. I've been a part of 12 different facility startups now, from small scale to the world's largest salmon farm. And at this point, really relying on a lot of that experience. And because I've seen many different variations of teaching, and somebody who has never seen a fish before and teaching somebody who's, been farming fish for 30 years. They've done it one specific way, and really trying to find a nice middle ground between teaching, learning, and really developing what is necessary for each individual facility is really what it comes down to. So I hope that I can lean on my expertise a little bit there and hopefully lead the team in the right direction.
Awesome. Thank you.
I think to go on what Commissioner Poole was saying, and Alex too, I think we've seen Alex's influence on the staff each time we visit. People like Scott and Jared and all that crew, when they give us a tour and they start talking about things, you can tell that there's a level of confidence, a level of understanding that they're gaining through this process as well. So I think you're on the right path for sure.
It's very exciting, and the team is getting very excited. We're still a year out from even having water in the facility at the moment, and we're already looking forward to all these things, and so it's really just trying to keep everyone excited and get them trained up.
Any other questions? Well, thank you. Commissioner's here to help make sure this continues to go smoothly, and thank you for everything. And Commissioner McGonigal, you've been doing a great job at keeping up with it, so thank you.
And if you'd like, there is a little video there, which is via fly-through, kind of give you a little bit better idea of the site.
When was this done, Alex?
This was just right before the snow.
Yeah, right.
That is our construction crew. Yeah, construction manager. He flies through regularly, weekly, I believe, to get a site map and view. This just allows them to track, and it also gives us a video documentation that we can use for training purposes later. What you end up with here is a big spider web of pipes underground, and when you do bring in new people, they don't get to see that. When you don't see that, you don't know where the pipes are, how big they are. We're talking 3-foot diameter pipelines going through the entire length of the 160 acres. And this just allows us to reference back and kind of get an idea of what it actually looks like underground.
And it also gives you a metric of the timeline, so this is just before the snow, which is what just kidding. Sorry. This also gives you a really good timeline of how quickly this construction team and the management team are working, because you can see through this, one of the other images where the circular building was, it looks like just circular tanks. That's the one where all of the I-beams are now in place, and the trusses are all in place for the pre-engineered metal building. So just to give you that timeline, this is this here a couple weeks ago before the snow, and now here we are with the full building and trusses. This one here that you can see right now, that's all trussed up and sides for the pre-engineered metal.
Thank you, Diane.
Thanks for coming up, Diane.
Thanks, Al.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, next we're going to move on to our committees. We have a little bit of an agenda here around the legislative committee, which met earlier today to go over some key bills. Mind you, there's still a big stack. All the commissioners should have do they have both stacks?
Yep.
The smaller stack is the stack we're about to go over. The bigger stack, we still haven't went over as a subcommittee. So if anybody's here in a specific bill in that larger stack, I apologize, but we are going to run through our positions on these first ones and take a vote as a commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As you stated, we did meet before the meeting today, and we did cover some bills that the staff thinks we should have got done before the bigger stack. What we're going to do is, I'm going to make the motion, either support or oppose, and Commissioner Caveney is going to second it. We need to do that before we have any discussion, and then we'll open it up for discussion. The chair will run the discussion. I'm simply making a motion, Commissioner Caveney is seconding it, so we don't have mass confusion. Okay, first one is Senate Bill 410, an act relative to possession of human remains for law enforcement training purposes. I make a motion to support this bill.
Second.
Any questions? Not see any. I'm going to call a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Second bill is Senate Bill 448 FN, an act modifying the definition of veteran and relative to lifetime hunting and fishing license fees for disabled veterans. I make a motion to oppose Senate Bill 448.
Second that.
Any questions? Not seeing any questions. The motion is to oppose 448. All in favor, say aye.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next bill is Senate Bill 505, an act repealing the fee for temporary registration of non-residents relative to OHIV. I make a motion to support Senate Bill 505.
Second that.
Any questions? Not seeing any questions. All in favor of supporting Senate Bill 505, please say aye.
Aye. Thank you,
All
Mr.
opposed? I guess I opposed. Anybody opposed? Go ahead.
Next one, Mr. Chairman, is House Bill 1018, an act prohibiting the use of certain second-generation anticoagulant rodicides. I make a motion, the committee makes a motion to support House Bill 1018.
Second.
Any questions on House Bill 1018?
You just ask the
Commissioner
committee the
Yeah,
logic behind the support. I'm sure that there was a lot of discussion.
Dan Bergeron.
Dan Bergeron, Chief of the Wildlife Division. So, yeah, the recommendation to the committee was to support this. It's well documented, the impacts that these have on our wildlife species. There's a growing body of evidence that the impacts seem to be more than even we originally anticipated. So the department's view is measures to reduce these on the landscape are good for our wildlife. It is important to note that Fish and Game is not a public health agency. We are aware that there are legitimate public health concerns when it comes to dealing with rodent populations, but from a wildlife perspective, we feel like this is positive for the state's wildlife.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. The motion is to support House Bill 1018. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next bill is House Bill 1045, an act relative to hunting with lights at night. I make a motion to oppose House Bill 1045.
Second.
Any questions? Not seeing any questions. The motion is to oppose House Bill 1045. All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. House Bill, next one, House Bill 1046, FN, an act enabling a person to carry a firearm on a snowmobile while being operated on private property. I move to oppose House Bill 1046, FN.
Second.
Any questions? Not seeing any questions. The motion is to oppose House Bill 1046. All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. Trey.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next bill is House Bill 1058, an act enabling the carrying of a firearm on an OHIV when such OHIV is being operated on private property. I move to oppose House Bill 1058.
Second.
Any discussion? Not seeing any discussion. The motion is to oppose House Bill 1058. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next one is House Bill 1074, an act that extended the time period for the remission of certain OHIV and snowmobile fees. I propose to oppose House Bill 1074.
I second it.
Any discussion? Not seeing any discussion. The motion is to oppose House Bill 1074. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The next bill is House Bill 1094, an act repealing the prohibition of collecting seaweed between sunset and sunrise. I move to oppose House Bill 1094.
Second.
Any discussion?
Can you explain that one a little bit? What's happening here?
Director did the best job of explaining it
Okay.
this morning.
Well, so there's a rather robust industry, commercial industry for this, and those individuals have certain areas where they harvest, and they're allowed to harvest. By allowing this nighttime activity, it opens up the door for people to go into areas that they aren't allowed to. Okay, you got it. They shouldn't be permitted to harvest because it's a commercial industry individual's permit. So we have concern about what it opens up for the activities at night.
Thank you.
Question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Train.
So there are certain areas that are allowed to do this,
Yes.
that they're designated to those people that you know what it is on the permit.
Yes. My understanding, yes.
Any other questions? Not seeing any questions. The motion is to oppose House Bill 1094. All in favor, say aye. All opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next bill is House Bill 1095. I move to oppose House Bill 1095, which is an act increasing the maximum weight of a utility. Where am I missing? This one?
No? What's the next one?
Oh, I got the
Oh,
Don't worry, rookie mistake.
1095. An act increasing the maximum weight of a utility terrain vehicle to 3,000 pounds. I move to oppose House Bill 1095.
Second that.
Any discussion?
I have a question. So, as I recall, there was a similar bill last year.
Yes.
But we supported it because, as a practical matter, these vehicles are getting heavier, even the ones we operate were getting heavier.
No, I think we opposed it because the large landowners were against
We
it.
opposed it last time.
Right.
Because of the damage, actually, we were more concerned about the environmental damage as well on these trail systems.
And then the argument for supporting it was they're getting heavier.
They are, yeah.
Yes.
The other problem that we're gonna have is enforcement. We don't have scales. I don't have any way for guys to drive around with scales to measure, to weigh these things. So it's gonna be unenforceable for us. But the large, we were concerned about, we shared the concerns of the large landowners. We wanted to support the large landowners, so we went in opposition.
And so the bill failed, it's coming back.
It's coming
And
back.
this is the position we took last year.
That's correct.
Yes.
And large landowners, my understanding is they're gonna oppose it again. So
Commissioner Train?
Do we know what the average weight of?
yeah, so that is close to what they're producing. The other problem that we're getting is the heavier they go, the wider they're going. And they're reaching a point where they're not gonna go through the gates for the state. So it's gonna create all kinds of issues. It's gonna be safety issues, it's gonna be weight issues, damage to property, so, the industry continues to increase the size of them. And that's why they're doing this, is to allow for the newer ones to come on. There has to be a lot of work done prior to that, I think. And now we're approaching, the other thing that scares me is we're approaching the weight of regular conventional vehicles. You know, some of these smaller vehicles will now be open to drive on these properties, so I don't blame the landowners, I would be hesitant to approve it too. Bridges and all those things are gonna have to be factored into this, as the weights continue to go up, you know.
Thank you.
Commissioner Hodges?
So this is a speculative question.
Yes.
If it fails to pass,
Yeah.
which is would be our preference,
Right.
will we not register these heavier vehicles, and how will we?
So typically we get contacted by people about weights and widths. And so we tell them what the current law reads. And we leave it up to them to decide whether they're gonna be able to. Because you still could, theoretically, I guess, you still could register it and drive it on someone else's property if they give you written permission, right? It could be off a trail. So you can't really say they're prohibited. They're just prohibited on state trails. So they have to be cautious of that. So it creates a problem, and the industry they're aware of it, you know, they know that this is great. The heavier they make them, for better ride, better comfort, more options, bigger sales, the more they get into this problem, so. But you reach a point where landowners aren't gonna want the products, so you're gonna have a trail system problem, so we have always supported the landowners.
Any other questions?
What's the current rate now?
You know, that's a good question. It varies based on the machine. They're below, I can tell you they're below 3,000 pounds.
So, okay, so right now, they're 3,000 pounds is kind of like the max of
It
where
is.
you're saying anything over that, then we're getting beyond it.
Pretty much anything you see today is being sold would be under that,
Okay.
3,000
I
pounds.
mean, I own one, and I couldn't tell you how much
Yeah.
it weighed, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, I think they're doing this looking down the road as these things get bigger and wider and more improved. So, but the trail system's gonna have to catch up with it, because our gates are smaller, our access points are smaller, and then you got large landowners that just don't want it. They don't want it, based on the damage that's done. I tell you, there is, at the risk of getting slapped by the group that supports ATVs, they do a lot of damage. Even careful riding does a lot of property damage, so increased weight is just gonna add to that, I think.
Commissioner Caven?
Kevin, for what it's worth, I had a phone call this morning regarding this bill. I was told the state group, the OHRV group,
Yeah.
is gonna oppose this bill.
Yeah,
So.
for those reasons.
Exactly, and as I said this morning, and not to belabor it, but the collateral damage regarding the connectivity of state trails and private trails, existing bridges. And one last comment, an individual called me who actually in their youth was into pulling contests
Yep.
and named a particular foreign-made four-wheel drive vehicle, roadworthy,
Right.
capable of fitting into this weight class. And this individual who is an OHRV enthusiast, said, do not allow this to happen. Because what comes out of people's backyard shops is gonna be a problem for all of us. So, there's a lot more to it.
You were asking about weights. They range anywhere from like 300 pounds to 1,000, but more commonly what you're seeing now is like 1,000 to 2,200.
Right.
That's the range where most of the vehicles fall. 2,200 is usually the larger units,
Quads.
but now they're, you know.
I mean, the price of those things are just like,
Yeah.
it's like buying a car.
It's a small
Right,
car.
right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? The motion is to oppose House Bill 1095. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Next bill is House Bill 1122, an act requiring all high school students to learn about hunting, wildlife management, and responsible firearms usage. I move to oppose House Bill 1122.
I will second that.
Any discussion?
I'm sure there's great reasons for this, but we get a little bit of explanation why we would oppose.
Well,
Yeah.
the language of requiring is strong. And we, as a department, already offer some of these things, as well as other scholastic programs, so we do our best to make them available. The concern is, on top of requiring, hence forcing people to do it, is that the department would then have to accommodate that. You're talking about, we don't have staff for this, the infrastructure, all this kind of stuff to actually accommodate a program like this. Commissioner Tran.
You know, this is already, in some states is doing this already,
Right.
that they're part of the curriculum in the school system.
And I think the director, Simon, could probably expand on how we already offer it.
Yeah, we do offer these courses, and I recognize other states are doing this in their curriculum. We also have some curriculum things that we share with schools through our programs that they can integrate into the curriculum and into the schools. The way that this bill is written, there is no resources or support or anything given to the agency right now to make this happen statewide. There's no guarantee, and honestly, what we're doing right now is reaching numerous schools that want to offer this. We're not requiring it. It's an option for the schools. It's becoming more of their normal curriculum within their programs. And I'm sure our public affairs director, Chief Nicola Whitley is here. She could probably add more to that whole process to help fill in the gaps. Thank you, Nicola.
Yeah, the concern is implementing it. So just one statistic, this past season, we graduated 2,676 students through the Hunter Ed program. There are 7,000 to 8,000 students who graduate every year from high school in the state. So that's tripling our program with no ways to accommodate that. Right now we use volunteers too, so, which we struggle to get. So how do we triple that? It's logistics. It would be really, really difficult.
Any other questions? Go ahead.
So, my ignorance of this, so you have to bear with me on this. So this is part of the department's requirement to provide this educational
We would be
program?
required.
Is that what that is?
That's what it's saying.
We would be required based on this
So
bill.
the Fish and Game Department would be required to
Yes.
do this?
For every student.
Yes.
If I could, Mr. Chairman. One of the lobbyists that was here, good lobbyist that was here at the legislative meeting, indicated to me there's a change in the language on this coming forward. I've not seen it, but it's throwing it back at the school system to create the teaching and provide the staff to do the teaching. So it may change moving forward. Because they recognize that this is logistically would be a nightmare for us. So he claims this new language is going to require the school system to create the lesson plans and do the teaching for it.
Which opens different concerns,
Right.
right, for us as an agency, because the components of this through our education program, certainly I would be supportive if we were given the opportunities and the funding and the resource to provide the materials that then they convey to the public schools. So as written, that's.
Right, no.
Yeah.
Again, just a question. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, the motion is to oppose House Bill 1122. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next bill is House Bill 1140, which is an act enabling certain disabled persons to hunt from a motor vehicle. I move to oppose House Bill 1140.
I will second that.
Any questions?
What's the current statute now? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Current
If you
statute
look at-
now.
If you look at the body of the bill, you'll see the very first few words that are real scary. Who has, any person who has any other physical disability. Right now, we have 100% disability.
You have to have a loss of
I'm
both
sorry.
lower limbs in order to hunt from a motor vehicle. And so this came because they had a constituent with a loss of one leg who came in to get a permit to hunt from a motor vehicle. We do offer, as you know, various levels of licenses, discounts, access. They get a longer baiting season, so we go a long ways to accommodate disabled folks, veterans or otherwise. But the language, and we feel the language needs to be clear in the law on what's allowed and what isn't, because it opens the door for all kinds of various interpretations. Like any other physical disability, that could be my finger doesn't work. I've got a call right now that I've got to answer for licensing. A person called in because he can't squeeze a trigger, so he's looking to get some sort of special permit. So those calls are already happening, and this would open the door for more of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? The motion is to oppose House Bill 1140. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, the next bill is 1304, an act requiring guides examinations to be administered by conservation officers. I move to oppose House Bill 1304.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Not seeing any discussion, the motion is to oppose House Bill 1304. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, the next bill is House Bill 1314 FM, an act enabling minors to apply for a freshwater fishing application without paying a fee. I move to oppose House Bill 1314 FM.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Not seeing any discussion, the motion is to oppose House Bill 1314. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, the next bill is an undertaker's bill. No, not really. House Bill 1348, an act relative to possession of human remains for law enforcement training purposes. I move to support House Bill 1348.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Not seeing any, the motion is to support House Bill 1348. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, for some that weren't at the legislative committee, there was a House and a Senate bill on this, so if someone suddenly realized, like, didn't we already vote on
So
this?
safety, for whatever reason, safety this year, on every one of their bills that they have sponsored, they have asked a member of the House and a member of the Senate to bring the same bill. I'm not sure, I think I know why they're doing that. It's a little confusing. They want to make sure they get the bill through. So the bills are exactly the same, just one is a House bill, one's a Senate bill. And then the other history I want to give you is we're looking to create a cadaver dog with our K-9 team. There's a need for that, to search for bodies and search missions. We don't have that, and that's a very different discipline from, as you know, for most dogs. Safety was looking to do the same thing. We were trying to prevent it from going to one agency in the state, but to allow all law enforcement to possess body parts for training. We're going to do this on a very limited basis. We're working with the funeral directors. There's been a lot of meetings prior to this legislation, a lot of thought put into it. I don't think we're going to need a lot of it, but we will need some of it, and we wanted legislation that allows us to have it. And then guides us on what to do with it when we're done, too. So this has been a carefully thought out presentation. So you have a House version, excuse me, a Senate version, you voted to support. This is the House version of the same bill.
Any other questions? Not seeing any. The motion is to support House Bill 1440. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, the next bill is House Bill 1440 FN, an act relative to properties enrolled in certain carbon sequestration program. I move to oppose House Bill 1440 FN.
I will second that.
Any questions?
Can we get an explanation of the concerns we have with the bill?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Dan.
Dan Bergeron, Wildlife Division, I'm not as tall as Alex, so. Yeah, so what this does is, any landowners that are enrolling in one of these programs would have to work with us and DNCR to come up with a management plan, which we would have to help develop and review. We'd have to go out and do site inspections, so this is a lot of additional work for our staff. And there's pretty much no kind of alternative. If someone just has property that they don't want to cut anything on, they don't have to create one of these plans. If someone has property that they want to, clear cut, they don't have to do this. So it just seems kind of counter to any other person who owns property. And again, it's a substantial workload for our staff to have to work on these plans and monitor these plans going forward. So that's our big concern with it.
Any other questions?
I'll just add, if I may, it's just, Commissioner Hodgson, it's just another unfunded mandate.
Yep.
We got too many of those. The motion is to oppose House Bill 1440. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, the next bill is House Bill 1530 FN, an act requiring notification of abutters and public review prior to disturbing beaver dams in non-emergency situations. I move to oppose House Bill 1530.
I will second that.
Any discussion? Not seeing any discussion, the motion is to oppose House Bill 1530. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, the next bill is House Bill 1603 FN, an act requiring state agencies to provide current and verifiable evidence of a species presence before imposing any land use restriction related to that species habitat. I move to oppose House Bill 1603 FN.
I will second.
Any discussion? Not seeing any discussion, the motion is to oppose House Bill 1603. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Mr. Chairman, the next bill is House Bill 1676, an act limiting consumer access to certain high-risk rodent diets. I move to support House Bill 1676.
I will second.
Is there any questions? Not seeing any questions, the motion is to support House Bill 1676. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Mr. Chairman, we finally come to the last one, House Bill 1699 FN, an act enabling the carriage of certain firearms in slow-moving boats. Mr. Chairman, I move to oppose House Bill 1699 FN.
Second.
The motion is to oppose House Bill 1699. Any discussion? Not seeing any. All in favor, say aye. Oh, I'm sorry. Commissioner Treyas.
Is this in relationship to what the bills are allowing, like Massachusetts does and Maine for shooting cripples, for instance?
No, I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm just questioning.
Last year, we worked with the Fed. We mirrored federal legislation where we changed that, so we allow for that now. This is going to allow the loaded firearms in moving boats going up and down it will enable a person to go up the Connecticut River slow moving in a canoe and humming from it. That's in direct conflict with federal statutes. Federal statutes don't allow that now for migratory birds, as you know. So this would conflict with that. So, and it also changes, I don't know that he wanted to do this. He did a lot of these other gun bills, but it changes the definition, which is going to affect a lot of our chapters. He's changing the definition of a loaded firearm. And that is concerning to us, because it's gonna upend a number of our statutes. So it would conflict, this current bill, if it passed, would conflict with federal statutes. So the feds are saying you can't do that, now the state law is saying you can. That's gonna create a conflict, certainly, on prosecution. And then it's also changing the definition of a loaded gun in 2071, which is gonna affect a whole host of other things, night hunting, vehicle, because, you know, it's gonna, there's like 8 or 9 laws that will upend. So we are against that.
So currently, right now, we have the same regulation as Maine and Massachusetts.
That's correct.
For crippling.
For crippled ducks, yes.
For
We did that
crippled ducks,
last year,
yes.
year before. Yes.
Move and shoot.
Yep,
Yes.
yep.
Okay.
This will allow it all the time. This will allow people to troll and shoot from a boat. So there's a lot of concern over that, safety
So
concern.
excuse me, what is it for permitting for pistol permits? How does this affect
So
what currently is, because that's always the.
So with a handgun, you can carry a handgun on any motor vehicle now, including a boat. You can't discharge it, but you can carry it. So they already can do that on an ATV, on a snow machine, you can carry a loaded handgun. What they're looking to do, they're slowly taking bites to advance to no regulation. So now they're moving to long guns. Long guns, as you know, carry a whole different possibility for accidents and threats, because there's no, you know, an ATV with a long gun, you're gonna have another ATV passing it, so literally you're gonna have families going by the muzzle of a loaded firearm, which is ludicrous. You've also got, we've got concerns about the insurance that covers recreational users might be violated because of this. So all of these long gun issues concern us. This is another one of those statutes that is
Because that was in concurrent of that bill that was a few years ago that was trying to get passed about carrying loaded firearms.
Yes.
It didn't define what, it just said firearms.
So I testified in that because they, instead of saying handguns, they said firearms.
Right.
That was kind of a backdoor way of sneaking all through. I testified to it. It raised some cane at the governor's office, governor's counselor. They went to the AG and asked for a ruling on it, and they said that the commission didn't have the ability to take a position on that because it didn't affect Fish and Game law. These do affect Fish and Game law, so you do have the authority to take positions on these. So yes, but right now, don't lose sight of the fact, in New Hampshire, live free or die, you can carry a loaded handgun anywhere you want to, for the most part.
Commissioner Taito?
How does this affect persons that may be coot hunting out on the ocean?
Maybe what?
Coot hunting. out
Same
on the
thing, they would not be able to, well, this would allow them to do it under Powhatan, if it were to pass. Right now, they can't, unless they cripple a duck. That's the only time that they are allowed on the seacoast to go after they can go after a crippled duck with a loaded firearm, but no other time can they do that under Powhatan.
Any other questions? The motion is to oppose House Bill 1699. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Great job, as always.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This ends my committee report, but fellow commissioners, please take this other packet, this thick packet, and review it. And if you see any bill in there that you think we should bring up to the legislative committee, please contact me, because I'll probably call a meeting of the legislative committee sometime in early January, sometime after the holiday. So if you see anything in there that you think that the committee ought to take up, please give me a call and we will see if we can make that happen. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
I'd also like to say that, you know, even if you're not on the legislative committee, you can still show up to those meetings. These bills are always discussed in detail, if people are curious. And it obviously helps expedite this, as well as the public will have to attend those meetings. All right, so moving on to the rest of the committee structure. The governance committee has not met. The sustainability and strategic planning committee.
Just a quick update, so while we haven't met, I did circulate the documents that I mentioned at the last committee meeting, along with the draft minutes, so I'm available to answer any questions you may have. They were in your email, and then Tanya printed out a copy, which I distributed right before the meeting, so if you see anything in there that you have questions about, feel free to give me a ring. And we'll meet again in January.
All right. Does anybody have any questions right now for him? All right, not seeing any resources and infrastructure. Commissioner McGonigal.
We have not met since the last meeting, and we may be looking to put a meeting together in January.
Cool. Public engagement, which is myself, in education. I'd like to extend to the public and commissioners that the deadline to submit for commissioner awards is the end of this month, the last day of the month at midnight. Hopefully you're not submitting at 11:59 for Tanya's sake, but point being, as a commissioner, you can actually nominate people if you don't know that. So that is something you can do, and certainly encourage the public as well to put people forward to recognize people for the work they commit towards our mission. Next is Seacoast Commission.
The New England Fisheries Management Council held a December meeting, and at that meeting, they approved measures for the fiscal year 2026 Northern Gulf of Maine scarlet fishery, which sets a total of 36 days at sea for scarlet vessels. Total allowable landings is set at 482,753 pounds, with a set-aside of 437,867 pounds for the Northern Gulf of Maine. This represents a 32% reduction in the since the fiscal year 2025 quotas. The reduction in quotas to account for a decline in the scallop biomass across the Northern Gulf of Maine. And the council also approved a long-term scallop strategic plan, which outlines a 3 to 5 year roadmap to achieve a sustainable, resilient, and profitable scallop fishery. Earlier this month, the New Hampshire Commercial Fishermen's Association held their December meeting, and Josh Carloni, who is the lobster biologist for the state of New Hampshire, for the Fish and Game Department, presented the results of the 2025 American Lobster Stock Assessment. The assessment concluded that the overall population of the lobsters is not depleted, but overfishing is occurring by a 0.0006%. Regulators agree that this reduction or this overfishing statistic is not a cause for alarm. However, if things do get any worse, that the conservation measures may need to be taken care of. In our May Fish and Game Commission meeting, we approved the revision to FIS 603.21, which was to allow the use of hydraulics in taking Manhattan in New Hampshire state waters. At the December 8th meeting of the Advisory Committee on Marine Fisheries, there were a couple of revisions that were that took place at the public hearing, which added some language to that FIS regulation. And this was to approve, motions were made to approve for the use of hydraulics, as well as to increase the set-aside for New Hampshire state waters from 500,000 pounds to 25% of the annual quota. To get an idea what that is, right now the 2026 annual quota will be 4.8 million pounds, and the set-aside for the New Hampshire state waters would be 1.2 million pounds. Where if the quota does get reduced drastically. They don't want the set aside for New Hampshire residents to go down below 500,000 pounds. So in front of you, you have a letter from the Advisory Committee on Marine Fisheries, where they have asked this commission to support a motion. And I'm going to present a motion that this commission approve the support of the use of power blocks while harvesting menhaden and reserving a 25% but not less than 500,000 pound annual menhaden quota for harvest within the state until September 1st, when any remaining quota would be released back to the general quota.
Do you have the authority to touch this? Maybe the first question.
The advisory committee advises us on coastal issues, and we typically do take a motion like this, and we do vote. Yeah. I'll second.
All right, so the motion on the table, I'm going to read it again, is a motion to support the use of power blocks while harvesting menhaden and reserving 25% but not less than 500,000 pounds of the annual menhaden quota for harvest within the state waters until September 1st, when any remaining quota would be released back to the general quota. Do we have any questions? I know I do, but if anybody's got a question before me. Go ahead, Director.
I'm just curious, Commissioner, with the changes, is this allowing power blocks for non-New Hampshire resident?
There would have to be reciprocity with the other menhaden producing states. So if Maine or Massachusetts did not allow the use of non-residents to use power blocks in those states, then they wouldn't be able to fish in New Hampshire waters with power blocks.
So it didn't change what we had suggested with respect to the reciprocity?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead, Commissioner Campos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Jim, could you take just a minute for the public and the viewing public and kind of fill us in on what the hydraulic block is all about?
Hydraulic power block is, this is a device that's set up on a block and tackle, and it's a large disc that allows the boats or the harvesters to be able to retrieve purse seines, because sometimes purse seines could be probably the size of this room, and hauling by hand is virtually impossible. In the past, we have not allowed the use of power blocks, and there's a couple of fishermen, one out of Rye, one out of Portsmouth, that do use purse seines, and they were fishing on schools of menhaden within the Piscataqua River in Portsmouth, and it was basically impossible for them to retrieve the fish. So that's the reason why they wanted to get this change to allow the use of power blocks.
Is there any other questions?
I have one.
Go ahead.
So are the other states adopting a similar minimum quota?
That I'm not sure of. I'm not aware of that. The minimum quota for set-asides.
Right.
I'm not aware of that.
So if the total quota is reduced to, say, less than 1 million, as a practical matter, how can we set aside 50% of the take?
It'll be for state waters for New Hampshire fishermen.
And I guess my follow-up question is there a concern of over-harvesting as a result of this? Meaning like the intensity of what he's saying. Like, are we catching under what we already have? Like what is the actual like?
This past strong season, the quota was met for New Hampshire, but the majority of those fish were all caught in federal waters, not in state waters. For some reason, the gobies didn't show up in state waters this past summer.
Commissioner Tran.
Jim, what do the fishermen think about this at this point?
They support it, because this is, the menhaden is probably the primary source of lobster bait for the state. And if our harvesters will be able to harvest more pogies, menhaden for lobster bait purposes and try to keep the price down of the bait, they're all for it.
Any other questions? Not seeing any other questions, the motion is to support the use of power blocks while harvesting menhaden and reserving 25% but not less than 500,000 pounds of the annual menhaden quota for harvest within state waters until September 1st, when any remaining quota would be released back to the general quota. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Lakes Management Advisory Committee.
That committee is not met. There is a meeting scheduled on January 14th, and I can only assume it's to go over legislation, some of which is probably similar to maybe some of ours as well. So, and then we have a meeting, I think, right the week after. I think that's the Wednesday the week before, so I should be able to provide a report of that.
Okay. New Hampshire Rivers Management Advisory Committee.
Same report.
Okay.
They're scheduled to meet in early January.
Okay. I'm gonna lump commissioner reports, old business, new business, all together. Does any commissioner have anything to add today? Or anything to say about anything they've been up to or issues?
Is there anything we need to discuss maybe about that dam
Yeah.
meeting that we both attended in New Durham? It was
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, the Commissioner McGonigal and I attended one of the dams meetings for Merry Meeting Lake down into Winnipesaukee. One of the dams occurring in his county, the other 3 dams in question occurring in my county. Obviously, there's a lot of anxiety around it, particularly they're looking to lower Merry Meeting Lake 20-something feet that could last upwards of 2 years. And it's, you know, a lot, really concerning obviously for industry, for the marina that's there, for Airbnb, whatever else. The other overall concern, and I guess something I wasn't aware of until that meeting, was that the state has to come up with a lot of money to fix a lot of dams. And it's certainly going to be an interesting conversation about how we make that up. And that's not just related to New Hampshire Fish and Game, that's related to a lot of dams under state control. I believe they said what it was, $400 to $500 million worth of
Dams
projects,
around the state.
yeah, that ultimately need to be. The biggest in that particular project is the dam at Merry Meeting needs to be upgraded. This all comes from, and I'm sure the director could say it more eloquently than I can, dams having to be rated to survive a 1 in 1,000 year flood event, which at first sounded like a lot when we were in that meeting, but I guess our standard is still lower than a lot of states, even at that. The Merry Meeting Dam is one of those dams that is flagged as not able to survive a 1 in 1,000 year flood. So there's a number of these projects across the whole state. 3 of these dams are impacted because Fish and Game owns them, hence they're in our jurisdiction, but obviously DES is actively working on this through the Dams Bureau.
I also think one of the other things we looked at, besides them being classified as high risk, which there's a lot of homes that fall into the floodplain during one of these failures, was, and it was just a little bit, but I think it's something we'll keep an eye on, was how Powder Mill might be affected by some of this work that could be in the next 3 to 7 years, or whenever funding might become available for these projects.
Any other commissioner reports? Wow, I feel like you guys just being nice to me. Taking it easy on my first round. We'll move on to the, oh, actually, no, we gotta move on to the election of officers. As the commission's aware, and the public might not be aware, the chair is stepping down. As a result, Robert's Rules requires us to hold an election for a new chair. And so I'm gonna turn it over to Commissioner Stoll and Caveney, who is part of the election committee.
I'll turn it over to the chairman of our committee, of the 2 of us, Commissioner Caven.
Thank you.
A lot of passing there.
Yes, at the last commission meeting, Commissioner Green, the chair, asked if Eric and I would not reach out to all members of the commission and basically solicit their feelings about wanting to serve as a chair, as a vice chair, And we touched also on Pat McGonigal's position as Secretary Treasurer. And basically, we've talked to everyone at least once. And I'm gonna offer this in a statement as a slate, okay? Based on the homework we've done, I would offer a slate of Commissioner DeRosa as chair, okay? Commissioner Hodgson as vice chair, and Commissioner McGonigal to continue as Secretary Treasurer.
I second that.
Now, as a courtesy, and having said that, if there's a nomination from the floor, or if someone wants to step up and has made a decision, since we all talked, or we talked to individuals, please make your statement now. Otherwise, we're going to call for a vote on the slate that's presented. I see no hands raised.
I move the question.
Okay.
All
Those,
in, yeah,
Okay.
all in favor of electing myself chair?
Yeah, vote on moving the question.
What's that?
Vote on moving the question.
Got to vote on moving the question.
Oh, sorry. Thank you, hey, see, that's why you're right next to me.
we will second that.
All right, all in favor of moving the question?
Mr. Chairman, do we need a roll call vote for the election, or can it be, I believe we do?
Sure.
I'm just asking the question, but it seems to me in the past that we've done a roll call.
In the past, it's been secret ballot.
Right.
Because it's been contested. So this hasn't been contested, but whatever the commission wants.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary to do.
Okay.
Voice vote's
I think a voice vote's okay.
Voice vote's
Okay, just asking the
Unless
question
you
to
want to
make
do
sure.
extra work as the secretary.
No,
We can accommodate
it's easy to
that.
write all the things.
All in favor to elect myself as chair, Commissioner Hodgson as vice chair, and I guess Patrick was already secretary, but Commissioner McGonigal as secretary, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Congratulations, you idiot.
You're supposed to say I'm gullible. All right, with that, we're going to move on to the director's report.
All right, well, thank you. Congratulations to all of you. Okay, well, I just want to mention real quick, in front of you, you all have received a hard copy of the biennial report. So we also sent out the electronic version, but now you have a hard copy for your records. I'll just give a few highlights from across the divisions. Inland Fisheries Division has been working really hard on beginning their data analysis and report writing for many of their federal aid reports. And if you're interested in any of those as they are completed, we'd be happy to share those with you. But they've been working hard on that. They finished all their fall netting for the large lakes. They've been doing some internal work on taking a look at their trout management plan and working some ideas together on that. You heard about the New Hampton hatchery. I won't go into any highlights there because I think we got quite a good overview today. Thank you for that, Alex. Wildlife Division, they've obviously, December 1 was the transition of the environmental review process to DES, and we still continue to work with them, meeting regularly, working on planning for new BMPs, some additional BMPs. So far, the transition has gone pretty smoothly. Also, they've initiated, the non-game program has initiated their fall fundraising campaign. So if you have people asking about that, please tell them, yes, it's active and we would gladly accept and appreciate their donations. Game program, fall hunting seasons are coming to a close. We definitely had some good record seasons. Bear hunting season ended the 30th of November. And we have, hunters took about just over 1,000 bears with a 5-year average running about 1,020 bears. Deer harvest, we got the results we had anticipated from our rulemaking changes, and we have a good increase, an 11% increase, estimated 11% increase, I should say, because we haven't finished all the final numbers, but an estimated 11% increase in the deer harvest, so that worked out really well. Pretty proud of the team for that. Good job on analyzing that and determining what we needed to do for the rule changes. Also, Marine Division's been very active. They completed all their native reef oyster dives. And they've also been, as you heard, they've been giving presentations. Lobster biologists, as you heard earlier, was at the Commercial Fishermen's Association meeting. They've also presented at the New England Fishery Management Council meeting, and they've also participated in the Atlantic Coast Cooperative Statistics Program Recreational Technical Committee meetings, the Dredge Management Task Force, and the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission on Atlantic Herring. So they've been really busy. Great Bay National Estuarian Research Reserve, very active as always. They did their winter story walk. It's installed now, so families go join them, go take a look at it. It's pretty exciting. They also had the education staff held their volunteer reflection session over at the Fall Cultural History field trip, and they had 12 volunteers that were in attendance and got tons of kudos for that. Approximately 2,000 students are scheduled already for the spring natural history events, so this is exciting. Research and land stewardship program over there. They've been obviously processing a variety of research efforts, but right now they're in the middle of processing and interviewing for the NOAA Hauling Scholar candidates, which will be research interns at Gibner for 2026. Got some good candidates there, so we're looking forward to that. Also, they're working on a ton of specific programming activities and looking at budget issues and figuring out what they're going to be able to offer for the next season. Working on training, the Gibner team hosted a virtual discussion on coastal conservation. It was kind of a roundtable discussion, but that involved a variety of people joining that, a variety of conservation partners. Also, they presented at the NERS Science Collaborative, and they presented, the topic of that was bridging human dimensions research and practice to address water quality concerns in the Great Bay Area. So, very exciting stuff. Law enforcement, busy as ever, always, but some of you who are in the legislative committee meeting heard that our officers have made quite a few night hunting cases. I think a significant increase over the past few years, so they've been doing a lot of good work. Our 3 new conservation officers, which we had mentioned last month, they have transitioned into the field and they're being assigned to districts at this point. So good stuff going there. And then just for those who aren't aware, on December 19th, our law enforcement team is holding their written and physical agility tests. So we're hopeful we'll get a few more candidates through that process. And then let's see, well, with the weather, OHRV registrations are coming in strong. We also had the online OHRV rollout, so that's been a success. We're making good progress there. Law enforcement has been actively involved in the Wildly Responsible outreach campaign that was put out through BEA originally, and we're trying to support that. All state agencies are trying to be involved in that and support it as a statewide effort. And then as a side note, a feel-good thing here, law enforcement kind of heads this up for us, but as an agency, we participate in what's called Operation Santa, and it's basically giving donations, gift donations to underprivileged children, and we just completed that this year. Also from the Director's Office, the Federal Aid Coordinator, continuing on working on our obligations for our grant requests. Now that the feds are back in business, everything is rolling, and so our grant reporting is needed, and our grant requests are needed. So we're submitting all of those. We're continuing to do the same thing both through U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service and NOAA, both ends. Also, we're looking to submit a few renewals on some work that we've been doing. And then from the Director's Office, just kind of department-wide, the DOIT team has completed the Fish and Game site walkthroughs to assess the needs across the state as far as networking and Wi-Fi and all of that. They're reviewing that data now, and I anticipate getting a summary report by the end of this month, so then we can begin assessing where we're going to prioritize our needs and begin upgrading all of our systems. Very excited about that. Also, I did attend the Commercial Fishermen's Association meeting. That was a nice opportunity to get to meet them. I've been engaging quite a bit with the senior staff to talk about our sustainability and the discussions we've had with the Sustainability Committee. So we're looking at revenue generating models and trying to achieve longer term sustainability for the agency. I've attended several meetings on the dams, the environmental review process, hatchery modernization, just a ton of different things going on all at once. Also working on, I worked with the Northeastern Association of Fish and Wildlife directors and agencies. We needed to revise the bylaws of the association and the operations manual, so we provided feedback from New Hampshire's perspective. I continue working with you all, commissioners. You've had quite a few constituents reaching out lately, so I'm sorry if I've been a little bit slower in my response than I normally am, but there's been quite a few from you. So, but thank you for working with us on that. I appreciate it, and I hope that you're getting the information you need so that you can serve your constituents. And then I was going to say again, reminding everybody that the Fishing Game Commission Awards of Excellence, the deadline is December 31st as well. So, thank you all for coming today, and that's the director's report.
Thank you, as always. Now we're going to do a call to the public.
Before we do that,
Yeah.
I got a question for the director.
Absolutely.
Director, that plaque back there.
Yep. You know what? You're going to get a surprise real soon.
I am?
Yep.
Oh, good.
I was hoping you would hold off until I could just say, by the way, Commissioner Stoll, would you look at that plaque back there? It's not ready yet.
Funny that we talked about that today.
Yeah, you're going to get a surprise really soon.
Good.
Darn, you stole my excitement. I was going to surprise you.
All right, call to the public. Anybody from the public has an opportunity to come up. Go ahead, Kathy.
Just a quick, if you remember a few months ago during the director's report, she indicated that we absorbed the Conservation Land Stewardship Program.
Yes, thank you,
State of
Kathy.
New Hampshire. So I would like to introduce Charlotte Hardick, who is the lead on the Conservation Land Stewardship Program. This is her first commission meeting. So thank you for being so nice today.
Welcome.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks, Kathy. I appreciate that.
Call the public for real. Representative Harvey.
Good afternoon. My name is Representative Catherine Harvey. I represent Cheshire 6, which is Chesterfield, Westmoreland, and Hinsdale. It's good to see all of you. I haven't gotten to as many meetings as I would like when you travel around, but it's good to see all of you this afternoon. Thank you for letting me come. I would like to offer my congratulations or my condolences, I'm not sure which, to the newly elected people. And if there's anything that I can ever do to help you out, you know how to get in touch with me. I also want to thank the Commission for supporting House Bill 1018. I am the prime sponsor of that bill, and so I do appreciate your support of that bill. I attended a rodenticide conference on Saturday at the Grapponi Center, and some of the speakers included not just legislators, but also pest control management people, Environmental Protection Agency, rehabbers, people from other states as well, not just New Hampshire, but some of our bordering states. And I will say that there wasn't a person in that room, whether it was from pest control or from legislators or environmental protection, there was not a person in that room that disagreed with the fact that rodenticides are killing non-targeted animals. There's just no argument with that from anyone of the 75 or so people that attended, and I would imagine most of the people in this room. It doesn't matter who, what, or how the bait boxes get put down. It doesn't matter if it's put down by a homeowner, a licensed pest control officer, or somehow they just magically appear. It doesn't matter. They are harmful to our, not just our raptors, but our fisher, our fox, and on up through the food chain because of the link between rodenticides and mange that's affecting fox, coyote, deer. And if you go down the food chain, it's affecting simple organisms such as slugs, snails, snakes, snapping turtles, blue heron. They're just very harmful no matter how they get put into the environment. So I know I'm preaching to the choir because you all supported the bill, but I wanted to give you my personal thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? Steve Angus.
Steve Andrews Conway, thank you, Mr. Chair, Director, members of the Commission. I just wanted to make all of you aware that our local Trout Unlimited chapter, Saco River Valley Trout Unlimited, we were fortunate enough to have the Region 1 Cold Waters Fisheries biologist come and speak to our group. His name is Eric Sabian, and he is an outstanding young scientist. And I think you all should know that how lucky that we are to have a new breed of fisheries biologist join the Fish and Game Department. He was outstanding. We're looking forward to working with him going forward in 2026. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public? If that's it, that's the end of today's meeting. Thank you. Oh, yeah, yeah.